Behind me is my brand new bike. That's right, no more scooter, we're a motorcycle man. Stay tuned and find out. Well, today's finally the day. I finally got a new bike. Well, it's not the first day having it, but it's the first day filming about it. So I'm going to show you guys that I'm no longer a C650 guy, although I may still call that in my channel. But now I've gone from a C650 to an Africa Twin. Let's try and get it all in the picture now because she's a bigger bike. And I haven't had it long enough to give you an in-depth review, but what I can do is give you a walk around and give you my first impressions of this new bike that's going to take me on new adventures. So here it is. It's a 2020 Africa Twin DCT, and it's going to take some getting used to, as I'm used to driving a maxi scooter, as anyone that's watched my videos knows. And I'm just going to give you my first impressions, and these impressions are subject to change as I get more experience with the bike, of course. I've only put about 500 clicks on this bike so far, so it's going to take a lot of getting used to, no doubt about it. So one of the first things I noticed about the bike upon picking it up from the dealer was the heavy lean that it has on the kickstand. And I was still nervous about even putting it here in this gravel. I had to test it and make sure that it was not going to just sink in that sand and go. It's got such a far lean. I asked the tech about it when he brought it out. I said, "Don't you think that's kind of far? Don't you think that kickstand's kind of short or something?" And he said, "No, it's designed that way. And for one, so that it actually has more stability." And I said, "What do you mean more stability? It looks less stable." And he grabbed the bike, and I'm not going to do it because I don't trust it enough, especially on this gravel. And he shook it violently around, back and forth, and side to side, and just shook the thing all over the place. And I'm like, "Hey, stop it! You know, it's gonna fall, or you're gonna break something." But he basically took one arm, and just shook it all over the place, and showed that it's not going anywhere. Now that was on pavement, mind you. But I have seen some guys online say their bike has fallen over with this kickstand. Maybe they parked it in too soft of a soil, or maybe the ground was sloped to the left too much or something like that. I don't know the details. All I know is that so far it's been holding, but it does have quite a lean. I think the other reason that it has a lean like that is because it's such a taller bike. That's an easier way to get your leg over to mount it. I know a lot of guys use the pegs to mount it, but I'm 6 foot with a 34-inch inseam. And, you know, it's a bit of a stretch for me to get over it, you know, especially when you're not 20 years old anymore. So I think those are the reasons why it leans so far. So you do got to be careful with it, I find. Watch where you park it. Watch the slope of the ground. If it's sloping down to the left, you might want to turn the bike around. But other than that, it seems fine. The next thing I noticed while getting used to riding it was all the electronics. I'm not going to go through all the electronics in this video because there's just that's a whole video in itself. And you know, if you go online, go on Google it or go on YouTube, you will find all kinds of videos where they're going through these electronics. But I'll just give you sort of a quick heads up. It boots up as you turn it on. You know, you hit OK, it warns you you're responsible, blah blah blah. And then you've got a lot of pre-programmed user modes. Everything's electronic. Everything from the suspension to the braking to the engine power, how much torque it delivers, the braking, the power, you name it. Everything is programmable here. The preload for what kind of weight you're carrying, and you just got to spend time with the manual and spend time going through it. I could just go through a few settings here. I've programmed my own setting to what I like for now, and that might be changed, but there's your off-road mode. And if I keep going here, there's gravel mode, which I was using earlier on some gravel. And then there's tour, which is for the open highway. And you can see how the settings down here have all changed. And that's really what the main difference is between these modes that you have. So in my user 1 mode, because I'm used to the maxi scooter, I found that it just seemed jerky to me, and then it's just because I'm like, the Maxi scooter has a CVT transmission, so you just twist and go. It's like a snowmobile. You ease on the gas, you go forward, you ease off the gas, and you just sort of coast to a stop. With this thing, you move that throttle like a millimeter and you lurch forward, and then you put it to let it off a millimeter, and the engine brake kicks in, and you lurch the other way. You lurch into the brakes, so it's like gas or brake. And so it's just like getting used to this. So you need a very, very light touch on the throttle, which, considering this is also designed for off-road, is going to take some quite a learning curve, because if you're standing on the bike and trying to do off-road, it's really hard to have such a delicate touch on the throttle, not to mention getting your finger on the brake and everything else. Being an automatic transmission, I find that it's a little different. I wish they would have designed it a little differently, but your left hand grip is actually a parking brake. So you pull that, and that's how you lock your parking brake. And your right is your forward brake, because there is obviously no clutch, as you can see. So what I would have liked to see better is kind of what BMW did, where your left hand is your rear brake, because now you've got to use your right foot for the brake. But maybe that's because of off-roading and stuff like that. Maybe they had to keep it like that for the off-roaders who are used to using their rear brake when they're skidding around corners and whatnot. So like I said, learning curve. But I would have liked to see that be the left brake, and then your parking brake could have been somewhere else, you know, in some other way. But whatever. So those are some of my first impressions. Obviously, the scooter has the seat lifts up, and you can put all kinds of stuff underneath, as you saw in my camping trips. And it has a top box too, but with all that storage, I got to get used to a bike that without this top box I just threw on it, it has zero storage. I mean, you can't even put your documents for the bike. There's a little spot under the seat, and that's the best I could come up with for putting ownership and that if I get pulled over or something like that. So everywhere I go, whether it looks as sexy or not, I threw the top box. I've also got the panniers, but I don't need them for just driving around locally. I'm just going to save those if I go on another big trip somewhere. Which brings me to the reason why I chose this bike. With this bike, it can, like, anytime you want to buy a new tool or vehicle in life, my advice, and at least the way I do it, is don't pick it for what it looks like or what your friends say or what it costs. Pick a tool or a vehicle based on what you want to do with it, and where you're going to go with it. What are you going to do with this tool, you know? So if you want to hammer nails, you get a hammer, you don't get a screwdriver. Well, the same thing with the bike, okay? You've seen in my videos, I like to do these long distance trips, and I like to adventure, and I like to explore, and that is what this bike is designed to do. And even when it comes down to the Africa Twins, they have two different kinds. They have a slightly scaled down version, which is meant more for just, I just want to go out locally, and I want to off-road, and I want to put nubby tires on it, and I want to do the dirt. Then you get the regular Africa Twin. The Adventure Sport model here has a larger gas tank and a bunch of other stuff in its design, which I can't even get into now. But long story short, it's designed to take you on those long distance trips. It's also going to be, of course, fully capable of taking you off-road. So now I don't have to fear the back roads or the dirt paths or any of these goat paths sometimes that I have avoided with the scooter. Of course, my next challenge now is I have to learn off-road, because I do not have any off-road experience. So I'm going to have to take some courses, get used to it a bit at a time. It won't be the bike that holds me back on that. It's going to be me. So over time, I'm going to learn it, and then I would like to ultimately, you know, be passing by some little dirt path or little dirt road and say, hey, what's down there? And go explore and not be afraid. But before I do that, I'm going to have to learn a bit more about off-roading, learn how to handle a big bike like this. This is about 530 pounds. I want to get some crash bars for it before I start experimenting on the off-roads and the gravel too much. Because if not, I'm going to end up dropping it and scratching it all up. So that's another thing about it. I'm going to have to get more used to things like that I didn't have to do on the BMW. Like I never had to maintain the chain, whereas this one I'm going to have to keep an eye on the chain, and you're going to have to adjust it once in a while, oil it, clean it. So I bought stuff for that. It doesn't come with a center stand. I could get a center stand for it, but for now I just got like a wheelie thing that I can wheel it onto, so I can turn the rear wheel and oil and adjust the chain, check for punctures, things like that. For now, it comes with a lithium-ion battery. I had to get a new kind of charger for it. It's going to be due for its first oil and transmission changes after, I think it's 1,000 kilometers. So there's a couple of things you'll have to change in it. Obviously the oil, but there's also like the dual clutch oil. There's gear oil. There's things like that. I might just rely on the dealer for a while until I get better at that. I don't mind. You know, it's easier for me to just make a couple bucks than to experiment with an expensive new vehicle like this. So I like to have it well maintained. Since it's brand new, it's well worth it. So there you go. That's the new bike. Another thing I find with this bike already, and I was a little bit surprised, is it actually does handle better than the scooter. And I've always heard the scooters are famous for their handling, but this thing corners better. I mean, I come up to a sharp corner, even a 90 degree or a hairpin, and it just cruises around. It doesn't even have to try. I don't have to lean or strain or do anything special. I just take it wide around the corner, and she just flows around the corners beautifully. So I love the way it handles the corners. I am nowhere near as concerned when I get an area that has tar snakes all over it or something like that. It just rides over them. It doesn't feel like it's risky or a problem. Even just pulling into this lot, which is all loose gravel, no issues. You know, you just watch what you're doing. As I learn more, I'll learn how to get fancier on gravel and stuff like that. But for now, just take it easy. Make sure, try not to drop your bike, and take some lessons and learn. So your future videos from now, I'm still going to call myself C650 Guy, just because I'm tired of constantly changing my name on the channel. But it's actually now the Africa Twin 1100 Guy. And I wasn't going to call myself the Africa Guy or anything like that. Just forget it. Just go with it, man. But all the future videos you're going to be seeing are now going to be with this bike for quite some time, hopefully. So that's all I can say about it for now. So let's go for a little ride.